Have you ever experienced a day that changed your life forever? What would you say if someone asked you what it was like? Can you remember the moment that everything changed? Was it a good day? Was it a bad day? Was it an extraordinary day, or was it just an ordinary Tuesday? Life is full of milestones, big decisions, celebrations, tragedies, mountaintop moments, deep valleys, and great victories. This is the human experience. A period of 24 hours can change the course of your life. What were those 24 hours like for you?
If you had to select one 24-hour period as the most important in your life, what would you choose? You might pick the day you were born, although some of you don't remember that. Others might pick their wedding day or the day they got engaged. You might choose the day your child was born or the day your first grandchild was born, which is way better than children. I mean, I tolerated my children. I celebrate my grandchildren. Parker the other day was like, Dad, what's happened to you? What have you become? You say yes to everything. You give them everything they want, and you didn't give us what we wanted. I said, well, I like them better than I liked you. I mean, hello. You might choose the day you finally graduated from college, or when you broke your addiction and found freedom. You might choose the day you paid off your last credit card, or the day you landed your dream job. Maybe it's when you were pronounced cancer-free, or the day you committed your life to Jesus. Your pick might be a good day or a horrible day, but regardless, that 24 hours impacted the rest of your life. When it comes to the most important 24 hours in the life of Jesus, there's no doubt. For the next 5 weeks, we're going to look at the most important 24 hours in history. 24 hours that changed the world. 24 hours that are the foundation of our faith. 24 hours that contain powerful, life-changing lessons. 24 hours that led to your salvation. If your goal is to be a lifelong follower of Jesus who really knows him, then you've got to slow down, take some time, and learn from these pivotal moments in Jesus' life. These 24 hours led to the cross, the tomb, and ultimately his resurrection. It would take months of teaching to completely cover every moment and detail and every teaching in these 24 hours. Instead, I'm going to focus on the most pivotal moments and words. It started an event we call the Last Supper. Jesus' final night with the disciples before his arrest and crucifixion was an emotion-packed, tension-filled evening that began with a lesson that goes against almost everything culture and society teaches. Then and now, we live and work in a competitive society. We admire people who are rich, famous, or powerful. There's enormous pressure to climb the ladder of success. I Googled the term personal power and got over 4 billion results. Stuff like 5 steps to personal power, how to boost your personal power, create personal power, channel your personal power, develop your personal power. It's all about being bigger, stronger, and higher than the people around you. Sadly, that way of thinking even carries over into church. Some people come looking for power, something to control, someone to boss. They want a title or a position because everyone knows that's the way to power and influence. Sometimes it's easy to spot. I remember a lady, not that long ago, her first week, she was overjoyed. She hadn't been in church in years. She came back to church, came back to Jesus. She loved First Santa Laura. We could do no wrong for the first week. Her second week, she noticed all the things we were doing wrong and told us what we needed to fix. Her fourth week, she wanted to be in charge of a ministry. Her sixth week, she felt like she needed to teach a class. Her 8th week, we were clueless and needed her help to make things right. By her 20th week, she was gone in search of someone or something else to control. It's common. We seem to be on an endless quest for the spotlight. We want recognition. We want honor. We want people to follow our leading, listen to our thoughts and ideas, ask us for advice. We want to be special and treated that way because we are somebody. We matter. We're important. Now, I know you probably wouldn't say it that way out loud, but you may think it. That thinking affects what you do, what you say, and how you act. You want me to sit in front and leave room for guests in the back? Not me. I paid my dues. You're not telling me where to sit. I will sit where I want. You want me to drive a shuttle or work in the parking lot? I'm too good for that. I need an important job. Sacrifice for missions? Give up 5 coffees to buy a Bible for someone who's never had one? Forget it. I got more important things to spend my money on. I am a tithe-paying member. They better pay attention to me. By the way, when someone says that, they never are. Not once. 22 years as pastor, I've had people say that, well, I'm a tithe-paying member. And when they say that, I look them up. They're not, ever, never, not one time. They are sponges sponging off your giving and giving nothing. So anytime somebody says, I'm a tithe-paying member, you have my permission to say, yeah, right. You want me to teach kids, work in the nursery? Don't you know who I am? We want the title, the power, spotlight, the recognition. People have thought that way for generations. Even Jesus' closest followers struggled with that. So Jesus did and said something to turn that way of thinking completely upside down. All 4 Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, tell the story of the Last Supper. I've primarily chosen to use the account from the book of John, beginning in chapter 13. Before we start the passage, let me set the stage. You've probably seen this famous painting by Da Vinci titled The Last Supper. Well, it's a classic work of art. It's not historically accurate. From studying the culture and the habits of the time, we know Jesus and his disciples wouldn't have been sitting in chairs at a long, straight table like the head table at a banquet. Instead, it looked a lot like this. It was a U-shaped table built close to the floor. You sat on pillows or cushions and rested as you ate, which some of y'all would love that. You know, eat a little, sleep a little, eat a little, sleep a little. Some of you already do that, just not at a table. You're in your bed or you're in a couch. It wasn't like a business meeting or a banquet. It was more like a family meal, a close, intimate gathering among trusted friends. They were all looking at each other, sharing food, and talking as they ate. That's where we pick it up. Chapter 13, verse 1 is just before the Passover feast. Jesus knew the time had come for him to leave the world and go to the Father. Having loved his own who were in the world, he now showed them the full extent of his love. The evening meal was being served. The devil had already prompted Judas Iscariot, son of Simon, to betray Jesus, which Jesus knew. He knew what was in Judas's heart. Jesus knew what was coming next. Jesus knew that the Father had put all things under his power, and that he'd come from God and was returning to God. All things under his power. It was the ultimate strength position. Jesus had all power in heaven and earth. He was over everyone and everything. You expect someone in that kind of power position to make demands, to lead, to rule, to be served. Instead, Jesus did something totally unexpected. He got up from the meal, took off his outer clothing, think coat or overcoat, and wrapped a towel around his waist. Jesus took off the robe, and picked up a towel like a servant. The disciples were silent. No one knew what he was doing or what was going to happen next. After that, he poured water into a basin. And he began to wash his disciples' feet, drying them with a towel that was wrapped around him. Let me pause this story right there because you need some context to understand that. In those days, they didn't have concrete or asphalt. Instead, the roads were dirt, mud, dust. Men wore sandals. After walking through town, their feet were dirty, dusty, smelly. Just as taking off your shoes before entering a home is customary in some cultures, washing feet was an important ritual. It was part of hospitality. It was about hygiene and a religious ritual of cleansing. At the same time, though, it was completely demeaning. It was the job of a low-level servant to wash the feet of everyone who came in a house. In this instance, for some reason, we don't know, no servant washed their feet. Certainly none of the disciples took initiative. After all, they were important. And so Jesus, on his own, assumed the role of the servant. He picked up a towel, poured water into a big bowl, and began to walk around the table, carefully, gently washing each of his disciples' feet, doing the job that no one wanted to do. And the greatest of all became the servant of all. Peter tried to stop Jesus, but Jesus insisted. Jesus, the Son of God, the Savior of the world, humbled himself, took on the role of a servant. He bowed before them, and he washed their feet. I don't like feet. I don't. I don't want to touch your feet. I don't want to smell your feet. I don't even want to see your feet. I would rather you wear closed-toed shoes at all times. But Jesus, soon to be crucified on a cross for the sin of all mankind, knelt at the feet of simple, ordinary men and washed them. The Son of God acted like a servant. I have to think there were tears around that table as slowly and quietly Jesus humbled himself and washed the feet of his followers. Why did he do it? Jesus wanted them and us to know, if you want to serve me, you first have to serve others. The pathway to leadership is selfless service. When he'd finished washing their feet, put on his clothes, returned to his place. Do you understand what I've done for you? He asked them. You call me teacher and Lord. Rightly so, that's what I am. And now that I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you should also wash one another's feet. What? We're supposed to wash each other's feet? How? How often? Where? How do we find that many bowls and towels? Jesus explained further. It was an example. It was a demonstration. Jesus said, I've set you an example that you should do as I've done for you. I tell you the truth, no servant is greater than his master, nor is a messenger greater than the one who sent him. Now that you know these things, you will be blessed if you do them. We all want to be blessed. So what do we have to do? What is the modern day equivalent of foot washing? It's others first, me last. It's serving others instead of expecting to be served yourself. I think of Dawson Walthall. Some of you know Dawson, most of you don't. Dawson's studying for ministry. His goal is to one day be on our pastoral team. Dawson wanted to work at the church So he gave him a job, cleaning the bathrooms. Dawson's a good communicator. He's got some natural leadership ability. He's smart, driven, focused, and he's the one scrubbing the toilets and cleaning the mess you leave behind. And you leave behind a big mess, which you need to stop. After about 6 weeks of Dawson on the job, people started asking questions. Pastor Rod, our bathrooms have never been cleaner. What's happening? What changed? Dawson understands the scriptural principle of humbly serving. When Dawson becomes a pastor, it won't be because of his talents and abilities, although he has a lot. It will be because he proved himself in the most humble of ways, cleaning toilets, the modern day equivalent of washing feet. And then, after Dawson's been a pastor a few years, people will say, well, you're just lucky. You got all the breaks because you knew Pastor Rod. Nope, no luck involved. It was cleaning toilets and being like Jesus. The path to leadership is selfless service, taking on the attributes of Jesus and washing feet. Foot washing is being so committed to others that you're willing to make yourself like a servant. It's choosing to go last, even when you deserve to be first. It's doing the job or ministry no one else is willing to do and no one notices, not because you have to, but because you choose to. It's honoring others, regardless of whether there's a payoff or reward. It's talking good about others instead of trying to get others to talk good about you. It's giving up the spotlight and the recognition that comes with position and instead shining that light on others. It isn't natural. You don't automatically do it. Instead, it is a daily lifestyle decision. I'm not just going to put others first. I'm going to intentionally put me last. I'm going to follow the command of Jesus and lead by serving. What would a church look like if we all thought others first, me last? If we all looked for opportunities to humble ourselves and serve others? I don't know everything it would look like. I know this, the bathrooms would always be spotless. Every time you went in, somebody wiping off the counter and picking up paper towels. A whole team of people would volunteer to work with Dawson. Maybe that's what foot washing means. You'd get here late and every parking place close to the building would be open, but you couldn't find a spot in the remote lots. Maybe that's the modern day equivalent of foot washing. We'd have a waiting list to work in the nursery. Everyone would want the high work, low visibility, no glory jobs. Maybe that's what foot washing means. What would worship ministry look like? Everyone would want to be in the background, not up front. I worry when someone shows up when they have a solo, but they can't be faithful when they're part of the choir. Sends a message that they want to be a star, not a servant. What would student ministry look like? Can you imagine a group of students who selflessly served and put others first? How would you act if you really decided other people mattered more than yourself and made your goal serving others? For some of you, this might be a key. You try so hard to prove that you matter, it's time to tell other people how much they matter. You look for ways to be important, instead, make other people important. You've tried to make sure everyone knows how good you are, change your approach and look for the good in others. You want everyone to accept you and be your friend. You want to be popular. Try it this way. Focus on accepting others. You've been on an endless search for self-worth and recognition. It's time to give someone else worth and recognition. It's time to wash their feet. You want a position of honor, maybe like Jesus, you should honor someone else. Quit worrying about how you should be treated and start focusing on how you treat others. We are so worried about what we want, what we need, what we deserve. It's all about me, me, me. How about giving all that up? What would a church be like? Where everyone caught the Jesus model of leadership, serving. And not just during the holidays or when you signed up to help, but as a lifestyle. What kind of impact would we make on the community? It would send an incredible message to people who don't have a relationship with Jesus. Everyone would talk about the church whose focus was serving and loving others. And then in verse 34 and 35, Jesus drove home the point with this powerful command. A new command I give you. Now let's remember the setting. We're 24 hours before the cross. This is Jesus' final command before the cross. So this one probably matters. A new command I give you. Love one another. As I have loved you, so you must love one another. Jesus didn't say, I have a request, or I'd like to suggest a new way you consider treating each other. It was a command. If you want to be a lifelong follower of Jesus, you must do this. But Pastor Rod, they haven't been nice to me. You're saying mean things. Jesus couldn't really mean that. Jesus said, as I have loved you, you must love one another. So that means we need to ask the question, how did Jesus love you? He left the glory of heaven and came to earth. He set aside lordship and became a servant. The disciples didn't know it, but Jesus was about to die for them and for us. Jesus set the example of humility and sacrifice. He loved people who loved him, and he loved people who were cruel to him. That's how we are supposed to love. So why does that matter? Look what Jesus said next, verse 35. By this, everyone will know you're my disciples if you love one another. It's a strong statement. Our love for each other is the evidence that we are followers of Jesus. I'm going to take a moment and explain something. This verse and the one we're about to read are why I'm so strong on gossip and dysfunctional conflict resolution. There's a lot riding on it. When you don't evidence love for others, when you gossip, gripe, and complain about other followers of Jesus, you completely invalidate your testimony. People watching can no longer recognize you as a follower of Jesus. Instead, you're just like them. The picture is, what you say about Pastor Parker when you're at work will either convince people you follow Jesus or prove that you don't. What you say about me or Pastor Rita or Lucas demonstrates one way or the other whether you follow Jesus. I enjoy diversity of styles and opinions as long as they're wrapped in love. I just don't want anyone to discredit the cause of Christ because they can't control their emotions and they refuse to obey Jesus' command. When you angrily vent your opinions about church or leaders, and sadly often put them in print, you demonstrate your unwillingness to follow Jesus and you harm your testimony. That's whether it's this church or another church. If you consider yourself a watchman on the wall and you've got to point out all the flaws in other pastors at other churches and take 45 seconds, they say, completely out of context and build a case on why they are heretics and no one should listen to them, you're not showing love. And you harm your testimony. You say, well, I don't believe that. Then you're calling Jesus a liar. It's tough, I understand. But we have tolerated people disobeying Jesus in the name of Jesus for far too long. If the way people know we are his disciples is our love for one another, then lack of love for each other proves you're not his disciple. So just quit claiming to be. And if you find yourself splitting hairs about what it means to love one another, if you say things like, I know I have to love them, but that doesn't mean I have to like them, you're probably not loving. Jesus should be our model. He laid down his life to demonstrate his love. The primary teaching of Jesus at the Last Supper was opt out of the race for power, status, and position. Instead, serve and love each other. If we get these two things right, it will be unbelievable the impact we have on our community. It won't matter if our building's beautiful or if we have the latest technology, a perfect cup of coffee, the best music, the most comfortable chairs, a wonderfully flat floor, the most convenient parking, the best preaching. None of that will matter. If we serve and love each other and serve others, we won't have enough services to fit the people. In a me-first world, an others-first church stands out. That's counterculture and unexpected. Now, I struggled with how to end this message. I thought about getting hundreds of bowls of water and having an old-fashioned foot washing. That would be cool, but I'm not sure we have the space to do it. And with the slope on the floor, it'd be super hard to keep the water in the bowls. I also considered handing everyone a toilet brush as they walked out the door. But this is not something you do once and feel better about yourself. This is supposed to be our lifestyle and our testimony to a watching world. So live this out at school, your workplace, in the community, at home, and at church. I'm not going to have you stand for prayer if you are a selfish glory hound. Serve others here. Look for ways to serve others in every arena of your life. Humble yourself and serve. God will honor that as you follow the example of Jesus. Love each other. Love other followers of Jesus, even if they aren't exactly like you. Look past age, race, and style of dress. Look past your differences and love with all you've got. When you do, people will recognize you as a follower of Jesus. Your life will shine. Serve and love. God will use that in remarkable ways to build his kingdom.
What an incredible service. Thank you for joining us and being a part of our church family. If you have any questions about today's service, if you need prayer, or if you just want to learn more about First NLR, go to firstnlr.com or follow us on social media at First NLR. Our goal is for you to be a lifelong follower of Jesus. And I pray that the Lord would bless and guide you as you obediently follow what He has for you and your family. We look forward to connecting with you.